according to the UK charity Tommy's, 1 in 2 of us will experience or know someone who will experience baby loss each year. But what should we be doing to support those who have suffered such a devastating loss, and what can be done, and already has been done, to support people experiencing baby loss? My name's Cal Behrens, and this is RWK Goodman's Legal Thinking Podcast. And in recognition of Baby Loss Awareness Week, we're hoping to have a discussion about some of those points. Joining me today is Keeley Lengthorn, a partner in RWK Goodman's family team and one of the key advocates behind the George's Law campaign. Naomi Marston, a counsellor and ambassador for charity Abigail's Footsteps. And Jack Jeffery, a parent trustee, also with Abigail's Footsteps. Welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keeley, I'd like to start with you. Obviously, you mentioned George's Law there in the introduction. That has been a really big campaign that you've been personally behind for these last few years. Just wondering, to start us off, would you be able to go into the background a little of the campaign for me?
So George's Law began after the death of my son George in 2022. So the year before, I'd had an ectopic pregnancy and had paid attention to some of the legislation in New Zealand. The president of New Zealand, as she was then at the time, had implemented legislation there, basically giving both parents 3 days paid statutory leave in the event of a baby loss under 24 weeks. I looked into the legislation in the UK and realised that in its current form, we still have no statutory protection for any losses for employees who lose a baby under 24 weeks gestation. So I helped put the miscarriage leave bill through Parliament with Angela Crawley, as she then was, in July 2022, and it was successful at the first reading. The second reading was delayed because of the Queen's death and put over to March 23, where it then stalled. So I then sought to make an amendment to the Parental and Bereavement Act of 2018, which has Jack's Law paragraph 1, which offers protection for losses over 24 weeks. And then George's Law would appear at paragraph 2. Matters then came to volition on what would have been George's 3rd birthday this year, where we were told that there would be an amendment to the Employment Rights Bill. So we're now, fortunately, going to have 2 weeks leave for any losses under 24 weeks. So George's Law was only proposing 3 days, and this says 2 weeks, so it's quite a leap forward. We're still going between the houses as to whether that will be paid leave, and it should appear on the statute books within the next 2 weeks, hopefully in readiness for Baby Loss Awareness Week, and with getting royal assent next autumn.
Naomi, just as a counsellor there, I imagine with that kind of law being implemented, although having those kind of rights in the terms of having bereavement leave kind of codified, how much does that impact someone who is going through such a difficult situation like loss at that stage?
Massively. I mean, obviously 2 weeks doesn't solve anything. 2 months doesn't solve anything. But to give women and parents just the time where they don't have to go back to work and actually protect some time to start grieving is really, really important psychologically, and also moving forward in terms of accepting the loss, and just being able to kind of, you want to hunker down after something so traumatic has happened to you. You just can't face the world. So to be able to have somebody actually giving you permission to have 2 weeks, and that you don't have to feel that you need to try and go back to work and to live your previous normal life, is really, really important.
Absolutely. I imagine it's one of those circumstances where it's something you'd never want to experience, but having that as an avenue of support is incredibly useful to just know that it's there. Jack, I'd like to touch on you, obviously, with your role as a parent trustee with Abigail's Footsteps. historically, what has that level of support been like for families going through this kind of loss?
I mean, we had kind of okay support. Obviously, we got the support of Abigail's, which is why I kind of become involved in the charity itself. But I mean, directly after we kind of lost our baby in the hospital, it wasn't an amazing care. Like I say, right after we was just kind of left in the suite, in a delivery suite. We could hear kind of babies being delivered and stuff, crying and that. So it wasn't necessarily the nicest environment. But I think I only kind of look back at that now rather than in the at the time, because all you could think about is what you had just gone through. It wasn't, and then until we kind of you kind of sit back and look at it and you think, actually, like there could be a lot more care directly after. And then, I mean, speaking from my work in particular, my company was very good with me. Obviously, it wasn't. I work for kind of a fairly small company, which I'm fortunate for, looking back at it now, because I've heard some horrendous stories where people are just expected to go back to work within a couple of days and stuff, which is just like ludicrous. But my work was kind of like, you go and have the time you need to do what you need to do, come back when you want. So I managed to have sort of 3 or 4 weeks off and then stagger myself back in. But yeah, I mean, at the time, care wasn't amazing, but I think it is slowly getting better, but there's still a lot of work to be done for sure.
Keeley, I imagine that's a similar circumstance or similar to your experience as well.
Yeah, parents need this time to grieve, Cal, and time again, ministers have said to me, "We'll just take it as sick leave," and it's not sick leave. My baby died. I didn't have COVID. I didn't have a cold. I lost my baby, and the recent report from Sarah Owens MP showed that there is evidence to suggest that there is an overwhelming need for this type of bereavement leave. And we have bereavement leave for lots of other things, so why are we not having this for baby loss?
Definitely. I guess that touches on that wider question of support and identifying what's needed for families going through this. Naomi, from a wider viewpoint, what support needs to be in place for this kind of loss?
Baby loss is a term that we use that could be an early loss, or a baby who's been born, who's lived and then dies. So there isn't one size fits all in terms of what is needed, but what is needed for everybody is some kind of emotional support, and to help them support and navigate through complex grief. Losing your baby psychologically is a complex kind of trauma. It's complex trauma. It's not normal bereavement. It's not like, Auntie Gertrude, who you've known for 96 years, has died and she's had a long living life and it's been very fulfilling, and you know what she likes and you know what she doesn't like. Your baby dying before you, none of us into parenthood thinking that our babies are going to die before us or our children are going to die before us. So it defies the whole circle of life. It defies what we're taught in society. It defies what we're brought up with. That's not the image that we're brought up with. And people are really still really awkward to talk about it. So we don't talk about it. We don't talk to our children about it. We don't even talk to our teenagers about it. I always say that we're missing a key kind of point in education, that we talk to our teenagers about how not to get pregnant, but we don't talk to them about what could go wrong during pregnancy or after pregnancy, or what happens when babies die. So the support out there, sorry, there's a long answer to your question, Cal, but there's so many layers to this. It's such a complex journey, or can be a complex journey, that's multi-layered. And what we need is that people can access a multi-layered approach and a multi-layered system that fits in with their grief and their grieving.
That's a really interesting point that you make there. And I think from what I've heard in conversations with some of our lawyers who work with people who have lost babies in the past, is that it can be very isolating. I imagine, Jack and Keeley, you guys both have experienced that to some degree as well. In terms of that support, then, what should those, around that family that going through that loss really be doing to begin with? Is it just a case of kind of being there to listen, being there to support, or is there something they should be doing in terms of making sure they are using the right language, or making sure they're just being present and being there for those people?
All of the above.
Yeah, everything. I've said time and time again that there's definitely a training need. Hence why I created a national training program. So the worst thing for me, and I still remember some of the things that were said to me, is the stupid things that people will say to you. Like someone said to me, well, at least you can get pregnant, or at least IVF worked first time. That doesn't help me, that doesn't bring George back. And I know that nothing will, but saying the right things, for instance, saying George's name, like George is my favourite thing to speak about. Like Naomi said, it's not like when an older relative dies and you sit around and you can talk about, well, do you remember when that happened, and do you remember when this happened, and you have funny stories. Like I haven't got any memories with George. So my favourite thing is when people ask me questions and they say to me, so Keeley, why did you call George George? What did he look like? And I love telling people like he had big feet like me, and blonde hair. And I think it's just knowing what to say, using a baby's name, listening and supporting it. And it will be different on a day. Like I still get upset now, and I might be a different upset today than I am a different upset tomorrow. So I think it's just listening and being there and just being aware.
Yeah, I think to add to that is, I was probably very naive before. I think it is hard for people, and I completely get that. But as Keeley said, like it's making just making people think a little bit more, and like so that's where the training would come in handy, because no one knows how to deal with it. No, like my mum didn't know what to say to me. She didn't know how to deal with it because she'd never kind of it was new. But I think it's just important for people to just at the beginning, friends and family, just to be there, and almost try to not. It's almost like not to say too much, because that's when people can put their foot in it, and someone just says to you, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be okay," and it's like, well, it's not going to be okay. But like they're not saying it out of malice. It's just some things are just natural for people to say, but when they actually sit there and think about it, it's the wrong thing to say. So it is tricky for people, and I do kind of understand that. But I think it's the only way that I've learned to how to kind of, because since we lost our daughter Olivia, since we lost her, I've become better in speaking to other people about it. I've had friends even recently lost a baby after it was born prematurely at like 24 weeks, and when I reached out to them, I used different language than I would have probably used before. But that's only because I've suffered baby loss. It's not because there's been any training or been anyone kind of giving me advice to it. So it's definitely needed in that sense, because some people can say the wrong things and that they might not necessarily mean it, but that doesn't make it any better. And it's just the last thing you want to hear sometimes is people telling you, oh, it's going to be all right, or like Keeley said, oh, at least you can get pregnant. It's like, well, that's not what people want to hear.
Yeah, and I used to have people cross the road when they saw me, because they didn't want to speak to me, or they didn't know what to say. And there's still people now that don't speak to me. So I think this happens, we know, to 250,000 families a year. And we talk about well-being all the time, well-being in the workplace, well-being generally. And I think this needs to come at the heart of that now, and we all need to be more aware, and there is definitely a training need.
Yeah, just sorry, very quickly to add, like what I was saying recently, like I reached out to my friend in time, kind of a couple of weeks after that, like I'd found out that they'd lost their baby, and he almost flipped it back onto me and felt guilty for not being there for me as much because of how he was feeling now. Mm-hmm. And that was quite eye-opening, because he obviously, and that was probably just because it's not spoken about enough, and kind of people not just kind of like brush it away, but there is that element of he almost sat there, like I messaged him just to be like, look, just to let you know I'm here if you need me, blah blah blah. And his like first response was almost apologising to me, and it just felt really odd. But because I'm reaching out to him because he's just lost his baby, and he's apologising to me because he felt like he should have been there more for me because of how now he's feeling. So it was an interesting response off the back of him losing his baby, but I think it was just eye-opening to kind of show that it is still a very taboo subject and it's just not spoken about enough. And I don't think some people maybe just don't actually realise how horrible it is if you're going through it. It's interesting.
I think one of the most difficult things as well for bereaved parents to answer, and that we all do it, we're all guilty, is that when we meet them, we go, "How you doing?" And really, they want to go, "How do you expect me to be doing? My baby's died," And I think we need to kind of bring it down a wee bit and just be honest. Say, "Look, I can't imagine what you're going through. Is there anything I can do?" Or even, "How are you doing today?" Or, "How's this week been?" Just kind of not this general, "How are you doing?" Because also there's kind of this culture thing, isn't there, that, our British stiff upper lip and we go, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." But really, you're not fine. And yet you feel that you can't be honest. So I think there's something in just saying to people, look, don't ask them how they're doing because you might get an answer you don't want to hear.
Yeah, I remember one of the kindest things that someone ever did for me was after George died was brought round, I think, 6 lasagnas because she was like, "I don't really know what to do or what to say, but I'm sure you don't want to think about your dinners for the next week." So yeah, she brought out and it was hilarious. She just turned up with 6 lasagnas and a big cuddle.
I think it's the little things. Yeah, the little things have really big impact.
Absolutely. I guess it just comes back to that thing that the little things do add up over time. I guess pushing in terms of wider and building that out further, what kind of changes need to happen to actually start that conversation, start pushing things in the right direction from both that conversational local level to almost that larger scale policy level? Keeley, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that if possible, please.
Well, we are making progress. So we've got baby loss certificates now. So because I lost George under 24 weeks, I didn't get a birth certificate for him. So now if you have any loss under 24 weeks, you can get a baby loss certificate. So we've made some strides there. We've got the NHS, which is the UK's biggest employer, are now offering 10 days paid leave to NHS staff. So that's another starting point. Obviously, the training, which I know I keep banging on about, but it is just vital. And it's not training for if you work in a firm. It's training for everyone. My hairdresser reached out to me and said, "Can I do that training? Do you have to be a lawyer or do you have to work in a firm?" And I was like, "No, it's for everyone." So yeah, everyone should be doing the training. Everyone should be implementing policies within their businesses, and these policies should be easy to be found. So the last thing anyone wants to do when they lose a baby is trawling around an intranet looking for a baby loss policy. So it needs to be easily accessible. I think businesses need to think about the appointment of a fertility officer, which is someone different from HR who employees can go to if they're having a loss or if they're undertaking IVF treatment, so that no one wants to put in their diary that maybe 100 people can see on Outlook saying, "Oh, IVF." Okay, so it might be that you just work with a fertility officer to have a block in your diary that says "keep clear." So the appointment of a fertility officer is definitely a way forward in my eyes as well. And to continue to talk about it, like I said, we talk about well-being all the time, and this needs to become at the heart of that.
I imagine that's where advocacy groups and then charities such as Abigail's Footsteps, for example, really come into the picture and are quite vital in helping continue that conversation, getting in front of people to the point where they feel empowered to have that conversation themselves. Jack, Naomi, obviously both of you guys are involved with Abigail's Footsteps. How important is it having those conversations and having that advocacy built in?
Really important. I mean, I'll let Naomi speak more because she's been involved with the charity more. But I mean, obviously, from our point of view, Naomi was who gave counselling to my wife and I, and that was kind of priceless, really. I mean, at the start, I don't know whether I ever even told Naomi this, but 2 sessions in, I didn't want to go back because I just thought I don't don't want to keep talking about this, and wasn't enjoying it. And then it became easier and easier and better, but it's one of them things, like, baby, it never goes away, and you're never going to be able to, and you don't want it to go away, because obviously it's your child at the end of the day. But it's just a matter of people like Abigail's kind of being there and offering that support is just priceless, for people to kind of speak to people that, like, obviously my wife and I had never met Naomi. It's speak to people outside of your inner circle, just to kind of let your hair down and kind of let all them emotions out. And it's I mean, Abigail's have helped us a lot, and that's kind of the reason why I'm fully involved with the charity, because it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, knowing what they've done for us as a family. So it's just important that, because unfortunately I know that this just happens on a daily occurrence of people losing babies. So it's incredibly important for us to be able to give back and let people continue to get that support, because without these sort of charities, people wouldn't be getting that support. I mean, my mum lost her baby literally at the hospital, kind of at birth, years and years ago, and literally walked out of the hospital the same day. They walked out of the hospital without even knowing what had happened. It was just like, so everything has come on so much, but it just needs to continue, and that all just stems from people kind of talking, and people being made kind of that they feel comfortable to speak about it as well, which is important, because it's not a nice, necessarily like happy subject to speak about, but it can be, obviously, because you are, at the end of the day, like, you lose your child, which is very, very sad, but they are still your child at the end of the day. So it's yes, people like Abigail's are very, very important.
I think it's Abigail's does amazing work. Obviously, it's not just me. I run the counselling team, but we deliver training, we deliver cold cots to hospitals, training to midwives. I think we've trained free training for over 3,000 midwives. We also support, we have a service that also supports the healthcare professionals that deliver the dead babies or support the bereaved parents. So that's quite unique. I'm not sure that there's another charity, certainly within the Southeast, that provides that service to those healthcare professionals as well. I think the sad thing, and what's so needed, is that, yes, Abigail's Footsteps is an amazing charity. I'm really, really proud to be able to run the counselling team for them. But actually, we need more Abigail's Footsteps all over the country, and it's really important that people try and find what services are out there. But supporting bereaved parents isn't a statutory service. It's completely reliant on the voluntary sector, on charities to support parents. And so therefore, the service that people get is going to be quite hot-potch depending on where you live. It's a bit of a postcode lottery, which is sad, because I don't think that every parent deserves the best support that they can get. And also, the psychological support, Jack will know this as well, but, to kind of accept that it affects moving forward, having children following a loss. So we know that parents who have got the right emotional and psychological support after the loss are less likely to experience things like postnatal depression if they've had that support before just going on to having children without that.
I imagine there's probably another line of thinking there, is that when it comes to the healthcare system as well, a lot of midwives and all those people working in that system, they're going to be impacted in some way as well. Obviously not to the same extent as the parents who are losing their babies, of course, but I imagine there's still that mental toll and mental challenge for them to get through as well.
Actually, Abigail's Footsteps delivers the support for midwives is called PROP, which stands for Professional Reflective Occupational Practice. And that service is available to any healthcare professional that supports bereaved parents throughout the country. It's not just mental, it's emotional as well. It's massive, absolutely massive. you can't be a giving professional and keep giving and giving without it not being affected. And I think lots of people don't think about, some of these midwives, say for examples, are parents themselves, and they may be supporting parents and delivering a baby that's not survived, and then they're going home to their own living children. It's a complex, it's emotional, complex journey to navigate yourself through without proper support. It's not easy.
I guess it all comes back to that kind of demand for education, for training, for making people aware of what could stem from losing a baby, both in terms of the practicalities, but also the emotional toll and what people need to prepare for. And then having that in place can also allow people to support others who are going on that journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a term that we kind of band around in the psychological world called compassion fatigue. And it is what it says. Yeah, it's just, you've given and you've given and you've given so much just to you're drained yourself. So, we see it as actually this is not only good practice, but it's the right way of how our healthcare professionals should be looked after. And hopefully, if they feel emotionally supported and looked after, then they're going to emotionally support those parents in a better way.
I guess looking forward, obviously, as you guys have said, things like Abigail's Footsteps have helped come a long way in terms of supporting people going through that journey. Keeley, obviously, you're campaigning with George's Law as well. You've really helped in terms of getting proper policy behind it to allow people to have time to grieve and work through their own journey. Going forward, is there one thing you guys probably want to be seeing more of in regards to helping people address this very complex and sensitive topic?
For me, that we remove the stigma and we start talking about it more with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say exactly the same thing. I think that's a massive one. I think it is just making sure that, and I don't know exactly what the answer is, but just making people feel more comfortable about speaking about the subject, because it's just not spoken about enough, and I speak about it quite a lot, but other people don't feel as comfortable speaking about it, and that's not because they don't care, but it's maybe because they don't feel like they can, or they're not speaking to the right people. So yeah, I think that's pretty much probably the same answer for me. Just talking about it more will just help. I think we'll just then have a knock-on effect to so many other positivity things.
I think I'd like to be really greedy and take two, and I think I would like to see a wider specialist baby loss service that parents can access, which the specialist is key, and there's not many of us baby loss counsellors around. And then the other service, I think I would like all of our healthcare professionals that support bereaved parents to be able to access a service like PROP.
Naomi, just very quickly touching on that specialism, how does that further support families going through this process, having access to someone who is well versed in this area?
The specialism comes down to it's a bit what we've said before. The babies that die before us defy the circle of life. So normal bereavement counselling or grief counselling is not the same as specialist baby loss counselling. The feelings that we have and the processes that we go through are or can be different for a straightforward bereavement compared to when a baby dies or when our baby dies. So there's often complexities in it, and it doesn't really follow a pattern. And so that's where the specialism is needed, and people need to be trained in that specialism. Or often they come, so, I'd say my specialism is coming from, I've worked with children and babies who have been living either with life-limiting or life-threatening conditions, or babies who have died for the past 27 years. So it's not always been with my Abigail's hat on as a counsellor. And it's those years of experience working within the field that has given me the knowledge and the skill to hopefully be able to help parents that I do now.
Absolutely. I can imagine just having that added specialism really makes an impact when it comes to a family kind of going through that loss from that journey. Having that knowledge that you can rely on someone like that is just, I guess it's a really nice relief for that family during that really difficult time.
Yeah, 100%, because you're trying to navigate a world that you've never ever entered before. So to have somebody at your side to say, you know, this is okay, this is what we need to do now, let's try this, let's try, you know, you're guiding them to a certain extent. Because as you say, you know, you're lost. You've been launched into a world that you'd never ever believe that you would be launched into. And in lots of cases, you've launched into a world you didn't even know existed.
Definitely. Well, I think we'll leave it there for today. Jack, Naomi, Keeley, really thank you all so much for your time speaking on this topic. It's been really incredibly appreciated. And thank you all for listening as well.
Thanks, Cal.
Thank you very much.